Moving to another country is one of the most stressful things you will ever have to do in your life. So what about if the company that you work for could take the stress out of it for you and pay for some of the biggest financial costs associated with moving to Australia? Well, to help you understand exactly what it's like moving to Australia on a 482 visa, I spoke to Kim and Euan that moved to one of the most expensive cities to live in the world. What are some of the biggest challenges associated with living on a temporary visa? And what things should you take into consideration if you're looking to make the move here as well? G'day, Kim and Euan. How are you going?
Hello, we are well. We are doing good.
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Sound a bit apprehensive. Why is that?
Kind of had a bit of a roller coaster week. I feel like full journey so far has been a roller coaster, but yeah, this week in particular, do you know what? Could be because we're in winter and we're freezing. It's hilarious coming from the UK. Yeah, I think obviously where we live just now is very much beach life and dependent on the sunshine. So maybe because it's just a bit cooler than now, we're just not feeling our usual happy kind of perky self, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
It's a thing that happens at this time of year. It happened in our first winter. It probably happens every winter where you kind of get a bit of a lull and you start thinking about being back in the UK, especially, if you've got friends and family that they're all pub beer gardens and there's the sunshine and I'm having lovely walks. And I think it just happens. One of the things that I kind of think about though is I think it is like what they call it, seasonal effectiveness disorder.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect you. If it affects everyone ever so slightly different. But I kind of think to myself, once I get through the end of the winter, I never feel really too bad. But God, what must it have been like in those UK winters when it literally is I get up and I go to work? Yeah, I mean, so if this is the worst that it gets, I'm kind of like, I'll take that.
Yeah, we'll take it. Absolutely.
It was warm today. It was nice weather. It's cold in the morning and nice in the afternoon.
Exactly. I feel like you go out in the morning all wrapped up and then by the afternoon you're pulling all your layers off because it's literally like doing a shot up in temperature. Yeah. I mean, we're sitting low 20s just now. It's hardly -6, although sometimes it feels it. But...
And sometimes, especially Sam, she says to me, but I like it when I can put a bit of a coat on or wear layers and feel that little bit of a cold. And I'm like, you just get up early in the morning and, by 9 o'clock it's normally warm again. Or especially in Queensland, one of the things I notice is it's cold in the shade, but the minute you stand in the sunshine, absolutely fine.
The minute you've got direct sunlight onto your skin, it feels a bit, it starts to feel a bit nicer.
Well, look at us, British people, instantly talking about the weather. Tell us about your life before you started your move over to Australia.
Sure. So, I mean, one thing I would say, we never had a bad life in the UK whatsoever. We had a very good life, very close with our family, very lucky to have them all within like 20 minutes of us. So, very, very lucky that way. We have 2 young kids. And we lived in a house, we owned our house in the UK. It was a new build and we were starting to outgrow it. So we decided that we were potentially looking at selling our house. And this was obviously after COVID, which I feel in itself changed everything, right? It changed like everyone's kind of views and what they wanted to get out of life. And we were one of those people that we just thought there's more to life than this, right? And once we decided we were going to sell our house, we kind of, at that point, had a little niggle of, if we could move abroad, if you could live anywhere in the world. And we decided that, I think that would be a good time after COVID to, just try something new. You were lucky enough to be presented with an opportunity. And I think that just came at the right time. Would you agree? It just came at the right time and we thought, let's just try moving to Australia. But as for our life, we were happy. We were just a little bit fed up when it came to the weekends, and especially when we had our kids. Finding things to do was just getting a little bit difficult, a little bit more expensive, and then you had the weather on top of that, which sometimes just kind of influenced what you could and couldn't do. And we were just getting to that point where something just needed to change.
What do you do for work, Euan?
Civil engineer.
Okay, so what was the opportunity? Was the opportunity tied into that?
Yeah. Like Kim said, especially after COVID, that's when we really started to dive into going, I think we should try living abroad. Whether that be just to experience it, then just to see where it went, instead of really trying to have this grand plan of we're moving and we're never going back. It was let's try it and see how it goes. So when we started that kind of discussion, I went on to, it was LinkedIn at the time, and just looked for a few different companies and just sent messages saying, oh, like my family and I are looking to emigrate, and is there anything that you can do? And it worked out quite well, didn't it? Because I think only applied for a few jobs and we had a few offers, then just took it from there.
Wow. That's the first person I've heard that's had success through LinkedIn. Most of the time, you're looking at Australian job sites, maybe Seek, Indeed, every now and again Facebook is something that I hear people kind of hear through contacts. Obviously, the old-fashioned, you know someone that knows someone and that way. But I often get contacted by people in the sense of trying to find work opportunities, sponsored job opportunities, and it never really occurred to me LinkedIn is literally the social media platform for that type of work.
Yeah, well, exactly. Somebody can just go straight on your page straight away. You get a CV and it could be anybody, and you just don't have that kind of that face there and everything about them. And then LinkedIn was, I will caveat that by saying I did know we had the same mutual university. So that's one thing that I was looking for, is like any connections, anything that way that I could, utilise that. So that worked out fine. But yeah, it was.
I think your LinkedIn as well. Your LinkedIn's very good. Like it's a very good. You have everything on it. Your history. It's up to date. And I think you either are really good at LinkedIn or you're not that great. And I think for you, it was everything that was there for a company or an employer to go and look at. Yeah. When we had the kind of discussion about it, we were both very clear that we wanted to have stability for our family. If we were going to move anywhere in the world, we needed stability for moving with kids, and obviously that had to be an employment already secured before you even moved into the country. So that was always number one. If we couldn't get that, then it wasn't going to happen for us, and that's why you took that route through LinkedIn.
I mean, you've gone through a couple of the reasons for your move, if you like, but I kind of think to myself, when you sort of described about how family were close to you, like that's obviously a big sacrifice that you've had to give up. Were there any other really important reasons for your move?
I've always fancied living abroad, even just trying it. That feeling when you go on holiday and when you're walking around on holiday and you go, I could live here. I could definitely live here. Then that's always just kind of been there. So I thought, as I was kind of growing up, then I met Kim, then, we kind of just never really spoke about it that much. Yeah, like later on, or closer to the move, so to speak, we discussed it more and more.
Probably say regret as well, right?
And regret was the biggest one, yeah, 100%. Like, where we lived, I always, there's a kind of infamous road where we lived, and I
Go on, name it, name and shame.
Graham's Road in Falkirk. It's very, it's not really moved on since the 80s, I would say. And I used to say to Kim, if we're driving down here when we're 40, will we regret? Never. And that was it. It was always that. That was always the go-to. Like, if we were driving down this road when you're 40, will you regret not doing anything else?
Yeah. Or your kids walking up it, or your kids travelling down it, like to go into our town centre. It was one of those roads that you're always on, wherever you're
That's the main road into town,
Yeah, it's a road. And I think each time we were on it, you were never in a great mood on it.
There was always traffic or...
there was always some entertainment going on, let's just say. When I think back, that's one of the things that I always think about when we were on that road, is that's when all our kind of like things happened in our heads, like do we want our kids walking up and down this road? Do we want to be travelling down this road in 20 years' time and just wishing that day when we had those thoughts, we should have done something about it? It's just that kind of saying of you need to scratch it. But we had that, and we thought, family as well, like, my mum always had that kind of regret of not doing it, and she was always very positive and very, you have to do it, you have to try things, and that's kind of how we just talked ourselves almost into it, that we can't be doing this in 20 years' time and go, why did we not take that opportunity? So I would say that's where it all kind of started. And then we have social media these days. You see loads of people moving over, and don't get me wrong, I know that social media can very much be a highlight, but when you're having those kind of miserable down days at home and then somebody's posting their average day in Australia and you think we have that opportunity, then in my opinion anyway, you'd be silly not to
just to try it,
not to even just try it.
You play it safe through your life, like, nearly all the time. All different things that you do, your career, whatever you do. Like, if you look back in your life, I would say, without trying to get too kind of looking back on things, you usually play it safe every single time. And we always felt when this opportunity came up, it was just like, see, for once, let's just say yes. Let's just try something different and see where it goes.
Yeah.
You, what's the saying? Nothing good ever comes after midnight. That's a good one. But the other one they say is nothing good ever comes out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to sometimes hear and speak to older people, particularly family, friends, people you look up to, and telling them about moving to the other side of the world. I find it can either go one of two ways. Either you get the ones where they're really sad to see you go and they kind of, tug on the heartstrings a little bit, not wanting you to go. That in itself is a good or a bad thing. But it's the ones when they're so positive for you and they're like, no, I wish I'd done it. You should absolutely do it. And you kind of look at them and you see a little bit of that regret, really.
Yeah,
you're like, I don't want to be like that when I get older.
Exactly.
And then also, here's the other thing. You were talking right at the beginning about sort of feeling that little bit of a low. And I think that it's a really powerful thing for anyone if they're getting that little low about, am I doing the right thing by living here? Should I go back? Think of that really shit place, which is the reason why you left.
Yeah.
And is it still strong enough? Like, do you want to go back to that? Yeah, maybe that's one of the success criteria. If you don't have that really shit place, everyone's got to have one. If you don't have one, it might make it a little bit harder.
I've got a photo on my phone for the day before we flew out. I was in the town centre and getting some last things, and I actually took a picture of it when I was walking down. And I said to Kim, every single time we want to go home in Australia, I'm just going to look at this picture. But then, don't get me wrong, sometimes I looked at it and go,
I miss that.
It was a shit hole, but it was my shit hole.
That's another British thing to be. It's mine. I like it. You're very condescending about things. So tell us then, with your work and your job, what visa are you on?
So the 482 medium stream, the temporary skill shortage visa.
And what, for anyone that doesn't know anything about that, what kind of things does it afford you? What things perhaps are you not entitled to?
So you're entitled to nothing. You can live in Australia and enter and exit as many times as you like in the period. So ours is a medium stream, so it's 4 years. And really, you have to work. There's more restrictions on it than there is freedoms, I would say. You have to work with your employer who sponsored you, basically, so you can't leave without your visa being taken over. You can only be unemployed for 60 days, so for whatever reason, if you left that employer, you've only got 60 days to find a new employer, or you need to leave the country. And you have to always work within your code. So there's an Australian code that's specific to your job role, which is on the skill shortage list, and you always have to work inside that occupation.
So you couldn't even, within the same company, you couldn't even move into something else that's slightly different for them?
No, if you were, so I'm kind of civil engineer, like site-based, so say I wanted to maybe move into programming, for example, then that's completely different route.
What would you say is the biggest restriction now that you've been in Australia that you find with your visa? What's the biggest problem with it, if you like?
You just don't have that freedom, I would say. So if things are potentially not working out, then it's very difficult to try and manoeuvre yourself around. And there's always that level of uncertainty. There is no requirement for your employer to put you through PR once you're eligible for it. So you're always just kind of like, you have that in the back of your mind. If your long-term plan is that you definitely want to stay and you definitely want to get PR, there's always that kind of voice in the back of your head. It's contingent on somebody else. It's never, you could be the best worker in the place.
So you can't what is your pathway to PR? Do you have to rely on them to be able to get it for you? How does that work?
Yeah, so you either go through the employer. If you work after, I believe it's just changed to 2 years now. If you work there continuously for 2 years, then they go through PR that way. As far as I know, the only other way is to apply for the visa on your own via the skills point. The way it's the 190, 189.
So what you're saying then is you obviously have to do your 2 years with them, but then it's not, I guess it's like, if you're wanting a promotion at work and sometimes you have to rely on someone saying, yeah, no, we want to promote you, even though you've done your 2 years worth of service. Is it like that? Or you just know, I've done my 2 years now and I can apply through immigration and just say, I've done 2 years at this company. You have to get their sign off on it?
Yeah, as far as much as I've read into it and know, yeah, that's exactly it. It is contingent on your employer putting you forward for that.
Wow,
I would
something to bear in mind
I would
then.
love for somebody to tell me that is incorrect, but as far as I know, that's what it is.
Well, I tell you what, if it is incorrect, someone will definitely tell us in the comments. And failing that, well, then that's the case. And let's hope that things do change all the time. Even that 2-year thing, that's only a relatively recent thing, kind of finding or giving people that PR route. I just thought it was, the case of you do your 2 years and then you do become eligible rather than having to rely on, the goodwill of someone else. No one really wants that uncertainty, like you say. So tell us about your actual migration journey to Australia, because I hear that these sort of temporary visas, they are quite quick to grant in comparison to some of, for example, my visa, we do have PR, but it was a long process. It took, best part of 2 years, if not a little bit longer from start to finish. What was yours like?
Well, when we had the discussion about our visa, we ideally obviously wanted that stability, but we also kind of wanted to limit our costs as much as we could. And I suppose we just looked at different options, but one of the ones that we were offered did come with a relocation package, which is ideal if you can get that. Now that meant that the employer paid for our visas, paid for our flights and temporary accommodation for 1 month. Which again, going back to travelling with kids, was exactly what we wanted. Obviously it meant that we could use our money for other things, but obviously if things didn't work out, then it wasn't a huge expense that you had given front. So yeah, again, that was one of the reasons of why would we say no to that, that opportunity without, trying to make it sound anything other, I don't know what the word would be, but it's almost like a free holiday, right? You're getting your flights, your visas paid for, and you're getting to explore a brand new country. So straight away, we were happy to accept that opportunity. I mean, I would say that Euan was approached by some other companies as well with a not so attractive package. However, still very good, but some of them, for example, won't pay for your visa, or they may only pay for Euan's visas or Euan's flights, which meant that myself and our 2 kids would need to be paid by ourselves. So there's various different types of packages that you can be offered. It's not just kind of one, and some people may get offered something different. But for us, we were very lucky to be offered this package. And like we say, it was secured employment as well. So we opted for that package. So our relocation package meant that we were in Sydney, obviously, and we got put up in North Sydney for 1 month, which again, that accommodation was covered by the company, and that in itself was quite an expense. So that was a great experience for us as well, but that's the reason that we chose that company.
So you say you were in Sydney. Whereabouts are you now?
We are in the Central Coast, on the Central Coast, so it's about an hour and a half out of Sydney. Really not that far when you see how big Australia is, which is something that definitely hit us when we were coming in. I mean, what I would say is a 24-hour flight with 2 kids. We had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. When we hit Perth, I was super excited that we were what I thought was 20 minutes from landing, only to discover we were 5 hours away. So yeah, that was huge for me. I think I've always known Australia was huge, right? But when you're actually here, wow, you really realise how big this place is. So yeah, we were in Sydney for 1 month. Now we've never been to Australia before, I should say that as well. Never been here, and we do know a lot of people that have been here, but when we found out we were coming to Sydney, obviously it was very exciting to be in such a major city. We landed in North Sydney, it was gorgeous, it was very busy. Again, coming from quite a small town in Scotland, landing somewhere like North Sydney and everything just felt very overwhelming, didn't it? Euan actually started work 1 week after we arrived, which was quite hard, I will be honest and say. I think if we could have done anything different, it probably would have been good to have you with us maybe just a little bit longer. But 1 week after we kind of got settled down in North Sydney, and then like I say, we are on the coast now.
How comes you moved then from North Sydney to the Central Coast?
So we actually had quite a few moves. And it's something that has definitely kind of impacted quite a lot on how our journey has been. But we were there for 1 month, which was our temporary accommodation. And within that month, that gave us the time to explore different suburbs and kind of try and decide where we wanted to settle as a family of 4. Now, this is something that I definitely would try and change if I could go back and do it again. And the reason for that is because we definitely came with the mindset of, well, kind of the UK mindset of we wanted a big house with a big garden, like you see in all the magazines. And when we started to look around suburbs, now we'd done our research in the UK, but when your only kind of research is Google, right, and some forums, you're very limited. People have various opinions on different suburbs and what suburb is perfect for a family, what suburb is great for getting on the metro, and you are just overwhelmed with information, and you're literally trying to look through pictures and decide online and look through the real estate app, which, let's be honest, is absolutely nothing like what you turn up to. It's really hard to pinpoint areas. So we actually managed to pinpoint a couple that we had thought would be ideal for Euan's work. Now, at the time, he was working down past the airport, so we really needed to be in the kind of Sydney
metropolitan area.
Yeah, as close to it as we could, with obviously without the price tag, should I say, which was really
that's
hard
tricky
in itself. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we landed in a place. We actually pinpointed a place called Cherrybrook, and we visited it. We took a journey there once we arrived and got a hire car. Which was also included in our package, which was ideal again. We drove about, and yeah, lovely suburb. I mean, when you've come from somewhere in the UK that's pretty grey, and a lot of the housing developments are kind of like copy and paste, you know, when you see an Australian kind of typical street, it's all very different houses, and that's what we loved. We loved that you could see a big 6-bedroom house, and then, you know, next door was a little 2-bedroom house, and then one with a pool and one without. And it's something that's really, really nice to come over here, and being materialistic just is not a thing here. And I think that was really something that we picked up on very quickly when we were driving around, and it was nice to see. However, we landed in a place called Castle Hill, which Cherrybrook was where we were aiming to stay. But when we were looking at some of the houses, which I know we would get onto, but whilst I'm on this topic, the real estate app shows you these very pretty picture perfect houses, which you soon realise are from when they were staged, when they were first bought, which is usually about 10 years ago. So when we were turning up to these houses, and we very quickly realised that we were going to have to up our budget because the houses were not reflecting what we were turning up to. So that was quite tough in itself. And then you get about 15 minutes to view this house and decide whether this is the house you want to stay in for what we thought would be our full time staying in Australia. And yeah, we had to up our budget quite a bit, Ross. We actually, the house that we ended up with was over $1,000 a week for rent, which is wild. It's absolutely wild. However, I have to say, we were at the point where we had viewed about 30 houses.
No, it was becoming unbearable.
With 2 kids, you know, it's hard. It's really hard. And where we were living in North Sydney, it was about a 40-minute drive to get to these viewings. Now, in an ideal world, you would have 5 viewings in one day, but the way that it works, you get 1 viewing and then another in 2 days' time. So trying to juggle that between Euan's work and kids' naps and just trying to then do it solo was so hard. So eventually we had to up our budget by about $100, and we came across this house. And the other thing that happens is you find a house that you love, and then you apply for it. And we've done everything. We tried to apply, we gave best references, everything, and then somebody just comes in with an extra $50 a week above what they're asking already, which is wild. And then you think, well, how are we ever going to get a house, because we're already hitting the top end of our budget? So yeah, we discovered this house anyway, which was quite a bit out of our budget. And I think at that point we thought, let's just take it. It's this huge, it was a huge 5-bedroom house. It was massive, and it had this gorgeous big garden. And when you arrive at, you think, wow, this is a dream. This is literally, you could picture everything. So we applied for it, and we actually got accepted very quickly on it, which, obviously, because
looking back now,
no one else wanted it. No one else could afford it.
They've seen us coming for sure. We lived there for 6 months, and you know what? I'll be honest, we were realising that for a start, we were hardly ever in the house. This huge 5-bedroom house, hardly ever in it, because we were out all the time, exploring and just doing what you do. And then second of all, we were just realising actually how much we were paying. $1,050 was our per week. Per week, that's what we could never get our head around. Like,
it was just unsustainable.
Just
seeing that come off every week, then it went, we paid it monthly as well. It was unsustainable, and we weren't able to really save up a bit of money to try and explore Australia. It was just like constantly handing money out, and we tried to get our daughter into we did get our daughter into daycare as well,
which wasn't cheap,
which is not cheap in itself as well. So it was just big payments, and like Kim said, half the house, and this is no exaggeration, half the house had nothing in it because we just never filled it.
No, it had 2 living rooms. I mean, it just was a huge house. But that's what we had. That was our mentality. That was our mentality coming from the UK. And in the UK, people will scrimp and scrape to have that house and not afford it. But, that is just the mentality that you come with. So 6 months in, we had to decide that something had to change. Without going into a lot of detail, but you obviously then have a break lease fee because you pay for a year. On most rentals, you're tied in for a year. We had a break lease fee to pay, and about 6 months it then comes down per week. So it was a two-week fee that we had to pay for obviously 2 weeks rent. But the house that we had then found was further out, however still on the metro line, so it meant that Euan could still get in and out to work via public transport. And we found a much more modern house. It dropped our rent to $750 a week, but we had to up it, which you have to do sometimes to get it. So we were $780 a week. Now this is somewhere that was way further out it was almost like the last stop on the metro line. So we were now about an hour drive out of the city. Nothing really around. This was a new build estate. So this was land that had very much lay empty. And this is where, gorgeous, I keep saying estate, but development, had lots in it, and it was great for the kids. And I really, really enjoyed the house, but it's not why we moved to Australia. We were in the middle of nowhere, not near any beaches, and Euan coming to and from work was taking him like 3 hours, a day, like to get them back.
An hour and a half there and an hour and a half back.
And that's multiple train journeys as well. And I think you get to a point where you think this is not worth it. Something has got to change. And being realistic, we couldn't afford to live in the city. I mean, ideally we would be living in the city, but when you've got 2 kids, you can't live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Bondi. You physically cannot do it. You need some space. And a lot of people, would say to us, why do you not live in the city and why do you not live closer? Honestly, because we have 2 kids and we need space, and they need some form of a garden to play in. And that is it. I'm not paying $1,500 a week, to live in an apartment in the city. Like, we're just not doing that.
We did look at the kind of northern beaches, and we went away up, so the kind of northeastern beaches. And remember we went to a house at DY, and it was top end of our budget, and it was just miles away from. You would need, and I said to Kim at the time, you're actually going to have to go in here, you're going to have to paint it. You're probably going to have to put... It
wasn't livable.
I would guess the agents would pass it off as livable, and they would say any work you want to do, then go ahead and do it. But you wouldn't
pass anything off, weren't they?
They would. You kids in it. So you just went, rule it out, like forget it. This is,
I honestly, it blows my mind that people actually live in the city, because it's just so expensive. I mean, crazy expensive. And when you're on the metro line anyway, we were like 40 minutes in the metro, we were in the city anyway. So that's the reason we moved out there. Now, we were only in this house for about a month, and then Euan was approached by his company, but for a project that had a vacancy, and it was in the Central Coast. Now, we've always looked at the Central Coast. It's very affordable when you look at Sydney. Central Coast, like I said, is about an hour and a half out, filled with stunning beaches, as is all of Australia, but it's really got beautiful beaches and that kind of like small town feel as well. But it's, like I say, it's a fraction of the price of Sydney. So we knew that ultimately we would love to live there, and that was kind of always our end goal. However, with Euan working this way down Sydney, right at the airport, there's no way we could do that. That's too much of a commute for him. So when this opportunity presented itself, we obviously didn't matter how many weeks we were in our house, we wanted to move to the Central Coast, and that's why it's taken us the journey that it has, but ultimately it's led us here. So it's definitely been a journey, but we've ended here.
Yeah, we just had to take opportunities as they arose.
Sure.
And yeah, one of the good things that we done was if stuff wasn't working, we just said we changed. And we've been really lucky. We've been able to be quite flexible. Moving the first time, we done it easily enough. Then even moving up to the Central Coast, we've not got that much stuff.
No, we didn't bring anything over on a shipment. The reason for that was because of COVID. So if we were to ship items over, they were taken between 6 and 9 months to get here. So yeah, it didn't seem like, why would we do that? You know, we need a bed, we need somewhere to sleep and sit on. So we decided against that, and we actually got rid of so much. I mean, we had a 4-bedroom house in the UK, and it was like packed. And it was good. We had a cleanse, we got rid of everything, so we didn't have much stuff, which I think made it a lot easier for us just to move. Yeah, we had visited the Central Coast a couple of times just on days out, and we always kind of fell in love with it. And it wasn't as busy and like fast paced as Sydney. Sydney's obviously a very multicultural place as well, but it's just so busy all the time. And when you came to the Central Coast, it's like everything just goes slower, and it's very much, I mean, in my opinion, it's very Australian. You know, people don't wear their shoes, and it's very, very slow paced. And it was just really nice. Like any time we were driving back out of the Central Coast, it kind of felt like down.
Yeah, the minute you went through the North Connects tunnel back into Sydney, you just hit the Sydney traffic straight away. You thought, I'm back.
Traffic light after traffic light, just all the time.
Well, it sounds you and exactly like what you said before, in the sense of when you go on holiday and you're kind of like, I could live here. Yeah. You know, all you had to do was drive an hour and a half out of Sydney to the Central Coast, and it seems like you found it there. Well, if you're looking to move to Australia, or you've just started thinking about moving to Australia and you don't know where to start, then the first step is to find out if you even qualify for a visa. Contrary to what most people believe, Australia isn't just one of those countries that lets anyone live here. And when we made the move more than 3.5 years ago, it was one of the hardest things we've ever done. To help you out and to plan exactly what you need to do next, speak to the sponsors of our podcast, True Blue Migration Services. And when you mention us, let them do the hard work for you in overcoming the ever-changing Australian visa system. And you get to use their free visa assessment, so they can tell you exactly what you need to do to live your best life down under. They are the only MARA-registered visa agency that we trust. And if you don't believe us, you can bore yourself by looking at the hundreds of positive Google reviews, but I wouldn't really recommend it unless you need help falling asleep. If we didn't use a visa agent, we'd still be stuck navigating the minefield of all the different forms and processes, and I probably would have never made the move over here and ended up being one of those people that applied for a visa to Australia and had it rejected. So speak to them today and you could be one step closer to living your best life.
Yeah, the Central Coast is lovely. It's so many national parks here, and the beaches, and it's just really, like Kim said, a lot slower paced life, and it's how you picture. I would say Sydney is how you would picture Sydney, like the Opera House and the bridge, and really nice. But one thing that certainly took me by surprise was the urban sprawl in Sydney was just something I just could not initially comprehend. It was just, you would drive for an hour easily, and it was just junction after junction and houses. The sprawl was just so big but then when you came up to the Central Coast, that urban sprawl's broken up by green spaces as well, and it just feels a bit more livable. You can breathe a bit more as well. So
it sounds like obviously the few months that you spent in Sydney trying to find your feet, trying to find out exactly if the Sydney lifestyle was something that would be sustainable for you. Obviously it wasn't really the case. How has living in the Central Coast then kind of met up to your expectations of what you wanted from an Australian lifestyle?
I think it certainly gives you the Australian lifestyle. So where we stay now, we can walk to the beach. It's a lot slower paced. It's got something that we looked for was that kind of cafe culture. So you go out and there's people sitting outside. There's a bit of life about somewhere. And then where we stay just now, it really does have that. And for the kids, there's so many parks round about us. They're outside nearly all the time. They're just out doing stuff. So from an Australian lifestyle point of view, certainly it ticked more boxes than Sydney ever ticked. And like Kim touched on before, it's a lot more affordable. You could put roots down here if that's what you wanted to do.
So now that you're, I suppose, in a more stable place, a happier place, you've had so many challenges getting there. What's been the biggest challenge for you now living where you are?
I think for both of us, it's a challenge maybe everybody who emigrates finds is just a sense of kind of loneliness. Like making friends is pretty difficult. We feel, especially because our kids are quite young, or our oldest is not old enough for school yet, so that opportunity to meet people is quite limited. Our work is probably not very conducive to being able to meet people as well. Yeah, I think that's been a big challenge, and I would say even finding a house here wasn't easy. You was still that how expensive houses are, and that competitiveness for houses is certainly now spreading to the Central Coast as well. So yeah,
there's so many families in Sydney. Are obviously the cost of living in Sydney is just, in my opinion, just wild. So all the families are now moving to the Central Coast because of this. So therefore, the Central Coast prices are now rising because of that. So a house, that would maybe be like 5 years ago is almost doubled now, which is just wild. And sometimes I feel like we've kind of missed the boat with Australia a little bit, because I think had we come here pre-COVID, then I think we would have just, come at the right time. And I think you would be able to get a house, and the wages are high, right? But the cost of living is really low. So I think that is a prime time. Whereas I think now, just the way everything is, wages are high, but then the cost of living is so much higher than it was. And Sydney is just that. It's like the gem of Australia, isn't it? So it's like everywhere in Sydney is just so expensive compared to other states. One of the things that we've also found challenging is childcare. Because we're on the 482 visa, it means that you don't get any access to childcare subsidy, which for some people can be up to 75% of childcare, which is huge. I mean, when we were in like North Sydney, for example, you're talking like 160, 170 per day per child to go into a daycare. Now, I mean, we're not that much less. We're about $130 per child per day. So that limits you as well. We can't have our children in daycare as much as we would probably like, and therefore I can't then work, So the challenge for me has definitely been around having no family support whatsoever, having the kids more, which obviously is every mother's dream, right? I love my kids more than anything, but I also like to have some time to myself as well, and kind of progress myself too. And that's so limited here because childcare is so expensive and so limited. One of the things that I would definitely, like people to know, that if you are considering the Central Coast, then there is almost a 2-year wait list for childcare right now. There is hardly any childcare here, but there's so many families. So the centres are they're rammed, aren't they? We were quite lucky in the sense that because I wasn't working, then any day that they could take, our oldest was our priority because she is due to start school in January. But I think we were quite lucky that way, because originally I didn't have my little boy in, I just had her in. And then we managed to get him in for one day. But it's definitely not easy.
Kind of chicken and the egg type thing. What's first?
Trying to find work to then try and get a childcare space, and you need the work to pay for the childcare space. Yep. It's very, very hard. And I think the UK has that definitely a lot better. For us, we had 3 days of free childcare, and that was before you even brought in, grandparents or anything like that. So that in itself has definitely been a challenge.
It's been probably the biggest thing that's put a lot of stress on us, because even when we lived in Sydney, Kim had to turn down a couple of jobs because Kim would get the job, then we'd try and find suitable childcare, and it just wouldn't work out. It would, the days never aligned, or not enough days at childcare we were able to get, and we almost had a repeat of that here in the Central Coast, where Kim got offered another job, even just a couple of days a week it was, and trying to align the kids with the daycare was just really, really difficult. But thankfully it came through.
But I mean, it was definitely a challenge, and I think that's something that we really didn't think would be that hard. We'd done our research on childcare, and we knew that we weren't going to be eligible for childcare subsidy in itself, so we did budget that in, but we didn't appreciate just how hard it would be having to pay that cost, per child, and not get any support at all. That goes for us as well with school fees. So like I've mentioned, our daughter is due to start in January. In New South Wales, if you're on a temporary visa, it's $6,000 per year for a public school. So other states, I know, for example, in Victoria, they have, it's free education, no matter your visa. So we are now in a position where, even the schooling here, the schools are so full, and some of the schools even have like 8 primary 1 classes, which is just insane. It's so big. But when you're paying, $6,000, you have some private schools, for example, that are $3,000 a year. So yeah, it's just those things that you do have to factor in. It's a lot of money, and it's probably just more frustrating when you don't get any help, you don't get any vouchers or childcare vouchers or anything at all when you're on our type of visa. But you still pay taxes, you still do everything else, you just get no help whatsoever. And I would just say that that's definitely something to just bear in mind. I thought I would be working probably a bit more, and we've not been able to do that, so that's been a little challenge in itself. But yeah, definitely the visa, it has a lot of tough things to it, and I would say the childcare is definitely one of those.
With all of those challenges, which they sound really tough, would you have done it had you known what you know now?
We would have came to Australia, definitely. I think that was something that is bigger than the obstacles that have been put in front of us. But no, I wouldn't come over on a 482. If it were me, I would recommend a 482 for a couple, or when you've potentially not got kids or whatever.
Younger stage of life.
Yeah, for a family, no, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it puts, there's been other things that have, fed into that kind of thought process, but it just it puts a lot of pressure on you as a family just to try and make that work. It depends as well, because childcare subsidy in some instances doesn't really give somebody that much support as well. But it's just how inflexible it is for you. The lack of kind of support there. All those different factors then feed into saying, take this visa on at your kind of risk, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that Sam and I have thought about, is how much it costs. People don't really factor in on the different types of visas, and I think we talked about it, and I don't think we could have afforded it.
No.
Moving here and having to pay those extra kind of fees when you're absolutely right. When you lived in the UK, it's just you never really took those kind of things for granted. We knew that childcare there was more expensive. We think actually childcare here is better value, but that's only because we have childcare subsidy. Had we not got that, we probably would be thinking to ourselves, actually, no, the UK one probably is a little bit better value now. No, it's really tricky. I mean, I don't really know what I can say.
No,
perhaps
I think
that's the thing. Like, it's not. We've came across these challenges, and like one thing I know Kim really tries to promote on our YouTube and our channels is like the honesty side of it. It's not for us anyway. Everybody has a different experience here, and they leave the UK for different reasons, and it's really hard to try and compare yourself to somebody else on that journey, because there's so many different circumstances all the way through it.
100%, yeah.
And for us, if there is another family looking with kids and potentially the same type of job I have and whatever else, like, we're showing that, or Kim likes to try and show that side of, it's difficult, it's got its challenges as well, but the one thing we've said is, like, we're now over a year and a bit here now, and we're still here, you keep going and keep going and you adapt, and you've got the bigger goal, and ours was always, let's stay a couple of years and just see how we feel, and after a year we might say, let's stay another year, or let's stay another 2 years.
Don't get pressure on yourself to be here forever, like, it's obviously the end goal would be to settle here as a family and for it all to work out, but equally don't put that pressure on yourself. If we're only here for a couple of years, then what an experience, right? And you're doing everything that we should be doing to make it work. So when opportunities come, even now, we still think about them and how would they help us as a family. I mean, one of the areas that we're staying in just now is gorgeous, literally the gem of the Central Coast, but that comes with a price tag. And even here, I think 5 years ago was super affordable, and you got like bang for your buck, because they like to say here, but now you're struggling. You're struggling to find a house here.
You're maxing out your mortgage for a
that
caravan
you don't need to
on wheels.
knock down and rebuild or completely renovate. So we're now in a position where we've moved here because this is where we'd love to stay, but the reality of that is that we can't stay here unless you are a multi-millionaire.
You max it. That's like, we were even talking about it before, like over the last couple of days, and you could afford it, but you're really like at the top end, and you need to think about the other things that you sacrifice because of that.
Sure.
And that's one thing we've felt about Australia the full time, is the trade-offs you have to make here are enormous. That it's like, you want to live close to the beach, okay, but you need to pay the money for it. But you want to live
And a big house.
And a big house, then you need to live, further west, and then you're not as close to the coast.
Yeah.
And then why did you? Then you have to internally argue with yourself and say, well, why did I move here? What was it? Why did we move here? So those. You tear yourself apart sometimes with those arguments you have in your own head.
I think one of another big challenge that we found as well is, as a couple, right, as a husband and wife, you're also sacrificing your date nights and your like little trips to Europe, which I miss so much. I never even thought about when we were moving here, because why would you? You're living in Australia. But when Europe is literally on your doorstep, and we used to go big family holiday a year, and then usually a couple of city breaks, and even just nip into the shop whilst your mum and dad pop round and look after the kids, or going out for dinner and it's just not led by tablets and uninterrupted. Those are the things that as a couple as well are huge pressures. And like we said the other day, we miss each other, it feels like sometimes, we've gone through a lot in the last year, but sometimes feels like you're just parenting and that's it. You're just trying to get through things, and the only kind of date night you get is a trip to the park where the kids are playing. And it's just, there's a lot. We do have dinner on the beach, and that's things that we want to do back home, but it's just another thing that we really didn't think about when we moved over here. And it's just another sacrifice that we have had to make, and people always say, but when your kids go to school and your kids are not young, for a long time, which we fully appreciate, but you equally aren't as young forever, and it would be nice to just, sometimes you miss those things from the UK too. It's not always just about the weather. There's also other things to really, really think about when you're making the decision of moving away.
Losing date nights is one of the more surprising things. When I think about it, no, I totally agree. Like, can't remember the last time Sam and I really had a proper date night. We're very fortunate in the sense that we have some really good friends that can look after the girls, and we do get it every now and again. And my parents, they live in the Philippines, which is reasonably easy. They're probably the ones that have visited us the most while we're here. And we, once every 6 months, perhaps once every 9 months. Yeah. But I always factor in, there's going to be a one date night thing. It just so happened, actually, we went to see Ed Sheeran last year, and that was like one of the date nights. But that was just so coincidental. My mum was just here at the time, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, mum, on that Saturday night, you're looking after the girls because we're going to go and have some fun. But it is such an overlooked thing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, like, weirdly that surprised you that you didn't think would affect you about the move?
They're probably the big ones, I would say.
You had mentioned surprised you about moving, as like how easy it was to set up. I think it's going to be a lot more challenging.
I think there sometimes can be that daunting feeling for people when they move over, and it's like, I need to set up a bank account and set up this and set up all these different things. It's actually quite easy. Well, we found it quite easy. I think the thought of it is more daunting than the actual experience. We banked with the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. We opened an account before we came. I think the day after we landed, we went to the local branch, walked in. 2 hours later, we walked out with 2 cards and a bank account. It was relatively straightforward, and even setting up our phones, we just got SIM-only deals. They came a couple of days after we arrived. Like, that type of stuff was all
Medicare
was straightforward. Yeah, it wasn't actually as daunting and complex as potentially you think it's going to be.
It's just the weird little things that affect you.
Yeah. Do you know what else I would say?
The stuff that you're just not expecting.
Yeah. People made me feel like I was going to see snakes and spiders everywhere, literally everywhere. And I'm not too bad with snakes, but I'm not the best with spiders. And you know what? I still get it on all my own socials, but you really don't. Like, I think people genuinely think they are everywhere. And you've seen one big spider, and we've seen one snake, but that's it.
What snake was it?
It was a red belly.
Belly black.
Yeah.
A bad one. I've never seen a bad one.
Yeah. We've heard loads of different stories and things, but people genuinely will stop even their thought process of moving to Australia because of this. And it's really not. Obviously I know it depends on where you stay, and probably the more rural you get, the more you're likely to see them. But no, they're definitely not. We've not seen any in Central Coast. So yeah, that's one thing I would definitely was a big surprise for me, because I was prepared. I mean, I have a cupboard full of
A little
contraptions and everything. I've got everything, and it's literally got dust on it. It's probably got comments on it.
Wow.
It's just not. That's probably a big surprise for me. It's just how least see them.
Any regrets about your moving process at all?
No regrets. Like we're really happy that we done it. We're really proud we done it. We're really proud that
You should be.
there've been plenty of opportunities to throw in the towel and go home.
We've thought about it.
We've thought about it. We've just went, this is enough. But we're still here. We're still giving it a go. And like Kim said, we're trying everything, because if the decision never was to move home, at least you want to move home and say,
We've done everything.
We tried everything. Like we moved state, we moved houses, we've done this, we've done that, tried all these things, and then I think you would sleep easier at night. I think if we threw in the towel early, we'd have went home and said, oh, we should have tried this, or we should have tried that. Or
I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of, and I can see why. I really can see why. And I think a lot of people need to think about that. When people do come home, they have got to the point where they can't do it anymore, whether that's support or financially. I know a lot of people in Sydney just now are having to take that tough decision of going home because they just can't afford to live here. I mean, to even say you've done it in the first place is huge. So, but yeah, I think if people go home, it's not an easy decision. It's definitely not an easy decision. And like I've just said, I know myself as a mum, I've said so many times, I just want to go home, and it's not for the weather. It's purely for support, and just missing those little things that I really didn't think that I would miss. And one of the huge things is that family support, and just having family so close by to just help out when you just need 10 minutes to breathe, or you just need to take some time for yourself. And I really didn't anticipate how probably stressed I would be here, just not having any support. And I think that probably will come, I think you make your own family, so to speak, and obviously you have visits from home and things, but ultimately what we would like to happen is that we find our own little community of friends. And like you said, Ross, that, you can call upon when you need a little dinner for two, or, you've got a show to go and see, or whatever that may be, that you have that little tribe of people there. For us, that's not happened yet, and it's not for the lack of trying, but it might happen. We just have to wait and see, and it only takes one person, doesn't it? So
certainly don't regret any part of it. We've just made decisions as they've came to us, and we think we made the best ones, but that's all you can do.
I think if you'd asked us that the other night when the battery wasn't starting in the car, and the kids weren't going to sleep.
The roller coaster. Sometimes you're at the top, or sometimes you're at the bottom. Just need to keep going with it.
It really does test your relationships, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, it does.
I think the good thing is that we've always communicated, and we've always been on the same page, and we've always said that if one of us makes a decision that they are going home, then the other will follow. Like, that's not, we've never said that, for example, if I wanted to go home and you wanted to stay, then, we would go home, and if that was vice versa. And we've always been on the same page, which I think is really good. I've never said anything that you've disagreed with, or you've never said anything that I've disagreed with. We both are hoping to get what we want out of this journey, and if it's not happening, we seem to both recognise when that's not happening. So I think it's very good to communicate as well, and just check in with one another too.
Have anything, both of you, that would be the thing that would make you want to move back to the UK?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. We've really been asked that before. It's usually like, what do you miss? I think this is where me and Kim are probably slightly different.
Yeah.
For me, not really. I miss like my friends back home. I went to school with those friends, and I do miss that close type of friendship. And they were good for a carry on. They've all got families and their own lives now, but maybe once every 6 months you'd meet up and have a good day out with each other, and it was good for the soul. And I think I certainly miss that. I miss that feeling of going out with close mates and stuff like that. So that would make a holiday would probably just sort that out home, to be honest, more than moving home. But that type of stuff I really do miss. But no, for me, I try to always say to Kim, just keep seeing the bigger picture, But no, there's not much from home that would make me want to move home. it would more be that here isn't working, that it would be go home, if that makes sense.
What about you,
So
Kim?
for me, it's definitely the kind of family aspect. So, and this is when you sometimes pull me in to just say, try and not think of things, you know, sometimes I'll remember all the highlights of home, right? And when we had a great day back home, and it can be hard that way, but when you've got 2 young kids, I just struggle with grandparents missing out on some of those little milestones, right? And I think at the time when I thought about this, I thought, well, there's FaceTime and, you know, we'll send them loads of pictures, and we do that. But Isla's starting school soon, and I just think of all the kind of grandparents standing at the school gates. And we got invited to like a grandparents' day at her daycare a few months back, and that was quite tough because, you know, you almost don't want to send it in that day because all the other grandparents are there, and I went myself, you know. But there's some things that I just feel when the kids are this little and grandparents are getting older, right? And I just feel like I just want them to experience everything from the kids and other way about as well. I just want the kids to soak up grandparents whilst they're fit and healthy and able to come to shows and, you know, take them to school one day and things. And sometimes that just eats away at me. And I just always remember that they are getting older and the kids are, I mean, Christmas Day was super hard for me. I really struggled on Christmas Day. It was a first and we weren't near a beach. So, you know, this year would be different. I'm sure everyone would be down the beach and it would be a much different experience. But I really struggled that day and I thought, I don't know if I could do this. I mean, that's a different decision. That's something that, you know, if, like you've said, if we were staying here, we would probably head home around Christmas time and spend that with family. And that would maybe be like your annual trip home. Or again, that comes at a cost, doesn't it? So there's so many things you have to factor in. We spoke about this the other day, that a trip home is also the cost of a holiday, a family holiday to Bali or Fiji. So
a bloody good one as well.
Exactly. Going home isn't really a holiday for us, is it? I mean, it's seeing family and that's amazing in itself, but it's not a holiday. So it's about $9,000 to just get home. Like, it's wild. So you have to really think about that as well. We're not just
$9,000. That's cheap.
Yeah.
Look, last year it was 12.5.
Yeah, I mean, I probably got.
If it was 9, I'd have gone.
I think Kim's got us seeing most countries in the world on the way home.
There's a 6-hour stopover in an airport. That's all right. We're getting home.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah, we don't mind having a stopover in Kazakhstan, do we?
Oh no, exactly.
We'll be fine. That for me just now is what I'm going through at this moment, and there's a lot of things, memories that are popping up in my phone, for example, that I just miss about home. And I'm a very seasonal person, right? So I love all the absolute crap that goes on at Halloween and Christmas and Valentine's Day. I love it. I live for it. You do not. You hate it. But I live for it. And Australia's not really into that, are they? They're not very... Halloween's not bad, but...
Our Halloween here is pretty good. Not necessarily, I'm talking about Australia, but where we are, Aurora loves it. Dressing up. They do so much more than where we used to live in the UK.
I mean, last year we went to a street in Sydney I think it's made the news and everything, because there was like 12,000 people there just in the street alone. And that was an experience. That was wild. And I really enjoyed that. I didn't expect that at all, because the kind of like build up to it, that's probably what I mean. Like the build up to things.
There's no build up to Christmas here.
No, there's not. There's Christmas Day and then that's it. And that's the kind of things that I miss. So, but I mean, we have family visiting soon, and
is that the first time that they're coming?
No, Euan's mum and dad visited us last January, sorry, but that's all we've had. So my mum's heading over in October, so it's not long to wait. And I think sometimes just getting your little cup filled up is quite good. It'll either go one way or the other when she leaves, because this is my family this time, you know. I think you even struggled with the airport drop off.
It's quite
it's tough.
A sad experience actually. When we were getting dropped off to come to Australia, it was all very rushed. Like, get out the car, go quick. It was like only the couple of minute drop off, but you're dropping them off at the airport is a different type of experience.
It's hard. It's definitely hard.
Sam doesn't do the drop offs, so I have to do the drop offs because she hates it.
You know, we say said that, Ross, when we came here, nobody come with us. I did not want people dropping us at the airport, you know, on our journey. We just wanted to literally wake up and just go, didn't we? We said our goodbyes the day before, and that was so hard.
That was probably not even touched on that, but that was probably one of the hardest days. Was the day before we flew out. All the family came round to my mum and dad's house, like Kim's family as well. And I had even if I know a couple of your mates were the same. Like one of my mates was like, I don't know what, just good luck and just left.
Yeah.
Like there was no, like, it was just a bit hard for everybody. It was a really, that was the worst day.
I genuinely don't know how people can have all their tribe at the airport when they're leaving. I don't think I would leave. I really don't. I think I'm proud that we done that. We had, your mum and dad took us to the airport, which was lovely, and even that was hard. But, you know, we made it very clear that just drop us off and just go. Don't want people crying.
Don't look back.
Don't look back, just keep going. And we done that. And I'm proud of us for doing it, because otherwise I think we would have just been, you know, upset and stuff. So yeah, family's definitely a tough one. I'm sure it is for everyone. And people keep telling me it gets easier, you know, and when they come and visit and things. But there's also the kind of just everyday things that you just don't, you take for granted at the time, like you've said, you know, and you just miss having them around. And like I say, those little grandparents' day at the nursery, like that was, it's just a little stab in the heart sometimes, you know, and a little reminder that they're not just 5 minutes along the roads and they would love to come to that, you know. It's they're not here. And it's not just a 2-hour flight either. We are 22 hours from the UK. That's hard.
What advice do you have for anyone else wanting to make the move to Australia?
I mean, I've got one on the top of my head that would be definitely don't rush when you arrive. I mean, we are obviously Sydney, so I don't know what it would be like in other states, but if you're coming to Sydney, then soak it up. Don't try and rush finding a house, you know, in the first kind of few months of staying here. I know obviously some people that you have to do that, but just settle in the city for a while, you know, enjoy the sights and enjoy what it has to offer, and don't rush into finding your like forever home, you know, because that's most likely will change it. And I just feel like that's something we definitely rushed. And
can I add on one piece of advice to that? I mean, I know it's not really necessarily going to help you now, but perhaps it might help someone else, in the sense that one of the things I said to Sam when we were looking at rentals, I mean, we were looking at places that were, even I was thinking, this is too small for us, you know, like 2-bedroom places, purely because they were just so cheap in comparison. Like, you know, add another bedroom on it, it's 30-40% more. And I said to her, because she would look at it, I'd show her on realestate.com and she would, no, what are we living there for? And I said, because it's a temporary thing, you know, we just need somewhere to live. We were nearly out of the Airbnb, we just need somewhere to live. And even if that is just where we are until we get settled and we get stable and we are able to then find what could then be our forever home, then we just have to do it. It's a stepping ladder. And I think you're absolutely right in how you described it. People get these, now I'm here, I'm going to get everything that I wanted from Australia, when actually it might not be quite the right time. And typically, especially when people, they spend so long trying to get a visa, and that's it, we get it now. It's hard for people to want to wait that little bit longer. Find what it is that is absolutely right for you, and then you can have it. Just take your time. Just don't rush anything. Live in the now. That's one thing that I'm quite bad for, is I try and plan what's happening in the next year, you know, like I need to know where we're going to be, and that has its own pressures. And you always say to me, just live each day, just take each day. We're here, you know, we live at the beach and we have a house, we have everything that we want right now, so let's just enjoy that. It's
good enough for now.
Good enough for now, and you know, you don't need to plan 5 years in advance right now, because it literally changes every week. Every week.
But until you feel settled, it's just it's a roller coaster. I suppose everybody's different again, you know. Like, but for us, it's just been such a roller coaster that we've probably just had to break it back to basics and say, right, let's just try and get through each day as it comes. Then as opportunities come, and look for them as well, and say yes to things as well. That's one of the big ones. And Australia's so varied as well. You know, like even from Sydney to the Central Coast, so it's just different.
And I'm sure Perth, Brisbane, all these places are probably so different as well. And you know, that's I think another, like, any opportunity you get, I think you just have to take it. It doesn't matter where you are, because each area and state is going to have its own things to offer, you know, and that might not suit one family, but it might suit the next. And that's hard as well. I feel like, you know, especially being on socials, people like to give you their unpopular opinion, but it might not necessarily be the best one for you and your family, and you just have to figure it out yourself. And sometimes that does mean moving 3-4 times, but you're figuring it out. You've never been here before, so, and you're trying to make it work so that you do live here. So yeah, that's probably the advice I would give, if that helps anyone.
Any more advice, Euan?
For the move, no, not really. I think just making sure that you're as prepared as you can be. And one thing actually we said in one of your videos ages ago, I remember you were asking me, was like, oh, what's one thing that surprised you? Is like the mundane life follows you from the UK to here. The getting up and going to work, that comes with you. Like the dishes don't wash themselves. There's no this, like, you know, if that's what you're escaping, when it shouldn't be, because this all follows you. One thing I've said to Kim is like, it's like the little moments that make you like appreciate being here, and that's what you need to find the joy in, is those little moments. And then that's when I think in your own head you start to make up your mind if it's worth it or not. So you know, like when we see our kids down the beach playing, like if we have dinner down the beach, we were doing it on like every Friday there.
Yeah, that was our thing
In summer, and you know, I was sitting going to Kim, we would never ever do this back home. But to get that little nugget, you have to put up with all the other stuff. So I just look for those little things, and that's where you make your mind up, I would say.
Plans for the future for Kim and Euan?
We don't know. That's
honestly, they change every single day. They change every day. We are open to opportunities. Like I've touched on before, where we are is probably not realistic for us to live here, unfortunately. The coast has loads of areas that we are still just trying to work our way through and explore and visit, see it, you know, could we see ourselves living here? Problem with that is we are comparing it to, you know, the most tourist place on the Central Coast. Everyone loves it. So you're comparing it to, having the beach on your doorstep, coffee shops busy and open at 5 a.m, parks everywhere, and then you visit somewhere else that's maybe not as busy, and you're saying, no, we're not going to live here. So we're working our way through the Central Coast to see the areas that we can afford. You know, can we live here? Would we enjoy living here? We obviously have schools coming up, so you have to think about that as well.
Balance. That's probably what we're trying to. That's what we're still trying to find.
We're very open to everything. If it's trying to stay, if it's trying a different area, if it's, you know, having to go home, then, you know, that we will go through everything we need to do to try our best to live here. And then at least we know that if we have to go home, then we've done everything that we've tried to do. We're here until, like, our 2 years that we've got in our head is until April anyway. So, you know, we're just trying to get through kind of each day now. And
just still trying to strike the balance. For me, that's where I feel like our kind of like short and medium term is looking right now. It's we're still trying to find that area where we're close to the beach, but it's also affordable, but then it also gives us a busy-ish lifestyle as well. You know, you could move to a regional town right up the East Coast and then have that beach life, but then does it satisfy your other needs that you want from like work and having, you know, that kind of busyness and hustle and bustle to a certain extent as well? So yeah, I think kind of the short and medium term is just still trying to explore and see where we can find that.
Out for your permanent residency, have you looked into what you could do kind of independently? Are you eligible through your job or through the work that you do?
Yeah. So it was a conversation I had with my employer maybe 6 months ago, was that we were talking about going and getting our own visa, basically. And that conversation was led because we wanted that opportunity to buy a house here. So we've got savings in the UK that would be a deposit for a house here. And we just wanted to be able to, if we seen something that we wanted and we went, I think that's a huge part to play, is renting here is very alien to us and we're not particularly fond of it. And you don't ever feel like you're settled, your roots are down. So I think that'll change, you know, if we end up staying here and we buy a house and stuff. But
I think owning your house would probably definitely change how you feel. You know, it's hard. It's really hard renting in itself, but your home doesn't really feel like your home because you're so limited with what you can do. And again, I always say it, but just having 2 young kids, you know, your memories are made at home, and sometimes just it's tough knowing that. I mean, your landlord could decide in a few months' time that they want to sell the house, for example, and it's never
going to be your forever home, is it?
No, exactly that. So that's another thing that I feel sometimes quite impatient with, is because I'm just so desperate to find our home that we really make our home, you know, and that comes obviously at a cost, but you also don't want to be making a mistake in doing that, because you're then buying your house. So there's a lot of things that are hard. I think you take it for granted when you're in the UK, because you know each area, you know, you've lived in it for 30 odd years, you know where you want to stay and where you don't. And when you come to Australia and it's so big, you could literally live anywhere. You have no ties. So it's super hard to find that area.
And the visa's an expense to pay out as well, to go through the 189 or the 190.
Yeah.
You know, you need to go and get your skills assessed. You need to then an immigration lawyer or agent to go through it for you and stuff like that as well. So, you know, we're kind of right between a rock and a hard place, to be honest, because it's, you stick with it and you take the risk of, you know, at the employer's discretion, you're put through your PR, or you go off your own track and you do it. And where we are right now is, because things feel uncertain and we're not quite sure what we want to do and where we want to live, then it kind of suits us just to sit in this middle road right now. Because, for example, if we lived where we live just now and this is it, this is where we want to live, it's affordable, it ticks most of the boxes, if not all the boxes, it would be a no-brainer to go and get your own visa, because you've got a goal. But because of where we are, because of how we feel just now, we think it's probably important to be flexible and try and be able to explore different areas if we need to.
Do you not think your mentality would change if you had a permanent residency visa?
I think it's a lot to do with the house, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot to do with owning a house, then that becomes your roots and you feel settled there. I think for PR, I suppose, gives you...
That's your key to owning a house.
Yes, exactly. It is, exactly. It's the main kind of player to owning a house. Also gives you that fallback if you wanted to go home for a period of time, then come back again. You could do that. That's the goal. PR is that's what we're aiming towards. But maybe I'm overly cautious or maybe a bit of a pessimist, but it's having that at somebody else's discretion if that becomes, because I've got a couple of friends in Sydney who they'll get to the end of their, they'll ask, okay, can I get sponsored now? And, oh no, hang on another year, hang on another 6 months. So it can be quite difficult to navigate as well.
The things that I often get asked by people who are in that age of, which visas do I go for? I really want to move to Australia. I want it now. They're quite impatient, and always give the advice of, don't go for the route that gets you to Australia the quickest. Go for whatever route gets you permanent residency for Australia.
100%.
And for some people, their only route is they have to go through some kind of temporary shortage visa, and that's all that is available for them. But for those people where you already, through your career, your job, you have that route to a PR, and you're serious about wanting to move to Australia, I can't recommend anything but sticking with that route. Even if it means you've got to live in the UK where you don't want to live for however long, if that's the one that's going to get you to the choices where you can put down roots, you can buy a house, you can move to wherever you want. That's the advice that I would give to most people, is get that as quickly as you can, and then once you have that, then your choices are much more open to you.
Totally agree. I think that like we touched on, that's probably the biggest bit of advice, or regret's maybe too strong a word, but that the visa that we have just is quite everything in balance. At the time, it suited us. It did move us here relatively quickly. It provided us with really good stability, because it was flights are paid, the apartment's paid for a month, you have a car for a month. You had all that there, but then the trade-off is you might get that stability early, but towards the end, that's where your uncertainty starts. But then I suppose the flip side.
The flip side is what we did. We moved over, we had no accommodation, no car. I literally remember coming out of hotel quarantine and saying to Sam, just stay in the lobby bit with Aurora, and I'm going to go and walk to the car rental place, and I'll be back in half an hour. Like that's what it was like for us. So
which is tough.
We lived the other side.
I think no matter anybody's journey here, a backpacker or 189, 190, 482, takes a lot of guts and determination and bravery to get here and just setting up again. I know we touched on earlier saying it was like getting a bank account and stuff like that's easy, but it's the thought that probably puts a lot of people off. How daunting it feels starting up again.
Everything's comfortable. Talking about that comfort zone again. Everything's comfortable when you're in the UK, and you've had that bank account for years, but like Euan said, it's straightforward. It's simple to do it. You just, have to have that mindset that you're going out that day to get it all done. And then that's you're set from there.
Work through a good Australian bureaucracy and you'll get there.
Thanks, Kim and Euan, for sharing your journey with us, and I hope it's given you all a greater insight in what it's like to move to Australia on a temporary visa in one of the most expensive cities in Australia, let alone the world. If you want to see more of what Kim's life is like, then make sure to check out her Instagram and her YouTube channel, and I'll link those all in the details down below. And if you want to see more of what our life is like in Australia, make sure to check us out on YouTube at That Johnston Life. And if you've been inspired to see if you can make the move yourself, or you're looking for that long-term permanent residency, then make sure to speak to our friends True Blue Migration Services and let them tell you for free, using their free visa assessment, the easiest way to secure your permanent residency moving to Australia. Follow the hundreds of other positive reviews today at www.truebluemigration.com. And I'll see you next time.